Milsurp Garage. All right, we're back with the Colt revolvers. We covered them just recently, but there is an interesting aspect here that I wanted to just expand on a little bit, and I'm not quite ready with the next in my series that I was kind of going down the theme that we were doing with the rifles. So this is a good opportunity while I'm putting things together on that front to just jump in and give you a little some cool little info on these. Now, if you remember in the video, we were talking about how the gun that preceded this, the revolver that preceded this, the cylinder rotated. See these cylinders as you manipulate, pull the trigger, use it, it's rotating in the direction that it closes. So it closes this direction, see, and that's the direction it'll rotate when you're operating the action. Same thing here with the officer's model, of course. So they did that because the revolver that was before it operated in the opposite direction. That, coupled with a lackluster locking mechanism, just made the lineup of the cylinder and the lockup, it had some issues. So when they were coming in, Colt was coming in with this new revolver here. This is one of the things that just makes these are one of the coolest revolvers that are out there. And doing these videos made me really delve in and do a lot more research than I had ever done before. And this is like a second to none kind of lockup here. No other revolvers lock up quite this way, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. You knew that they had on the agenda because that was the problems before. A big major thing was we cannot have the same problems again. We need to really work on this, how the revolver locks up. And these revolvers like this were a pretty new thing, you know. So let's just take the Army Special for now. And what are we going to compare it to? We're going to compare it to a Smith & Wesson Model 19 because they are in comparable size, frame size, and everything. And this is a 1963, the Model 19, while this is a 1918 model. So you couldn't say that, oh yeah, well, you're using a newer gun, of course it's going to lock up better or worse, so it changes. If anything, this would lock up better just because it's newer. So there's a good reason to be using a newer gun. But plus, on the other side, if I show you that there's a difference between the two, I could compare that difference to the Model 29 as opposed to the officer's model. So I'll show you that it's not just these two guns. Of course, two different guns could have various stages of wear, parts fitment, you know, who knows what they had been through. But I could show you that this is definitely a difference between Smith & Wesson and Colt straight across the board. Nothing locks up like these Colts, and I'll show you the difference. Now, if I just take let's just take the Model 19. Of course, if you just hold the revolver and manipulate the cylinder, you're going to get a little bit of movement there. It's just the nature of the beast. It doesn't lock up so tight that there isn't even the teeniest bit of movement. There is some movement here. Now, if I cock the hammer, same movement. If I pull the trigger and hold the trigger down, see, of course, the way these things have a hammer block. So unless you're actually physically holding the trigger all the way down, the hammer will not come this far. You see how it'll come up? And now if I drop it and let go of the trigger, if I'm not holding the trigger back, it's only going to fall to here. It's not going to even contact. See, so to get that full, that's the firing position. So that's the position that the hammer would have struck the firing pin. I still have the same amount of looseness. So right across the board, even here, 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 pulling the trigger as hard as I can here. Same amount of movement. So it's basically the Smith & Wessons. You could look at it like this, say. The Smith & Wessons, and most revolvers are like this. They're set with certain tolerances, and that's it. The tolerances don't change. There's no manipulation of the trigger that has any effect as to how the cylinder is locked. Okay? Just like a mechanical, there's definitely mechanical changes as opposed to whether you have the trigger pulled all the way or not. And, of course, I'll show you on the Model 29, we'll have the same thing. This movement, it's a little deeper. It's a little deeper movement because it's a larger gun. With the hammer cocked, same movement. You could hear it. Trigger pulled and the hammer all the way down. Squeezing the trigger in now. Same movement. Nothing changes. You could say it. Same amount of movement. The trigger isn't doing anything but just operating the mechanism. It's not doing anything to change the lockup here. Colt is different. Now, somebody that's really good with Colts is going to be able to explain why. I'm not there yet. I'm going to be taking like these plates off sometime later in my life and really delving into what's going on inside of there, or just watching videos or reading books on it. But for right now, I can just tell you what happens. I really can't tell you why. But the Colt, not without its movement, of course. Not without its movement. Watch the difference here. Nothing. And when I squeeze the trigger, if I back off the trigger a little bit, it gets some movement. Watch what happens when I squeeze the trigger down hard. Something's happening in here. Something's connected that when I squeeze this. So at the moment of truth, when you're pulling the trigger, and that hammer comes down, it's coming down on. Feel it. Listen to that. Look, nothing. Here's off. Now watch, I'm going to pull the trigger. Watch. Nothing. That locks in. And this isn't an anomaly. Just how they work. If I back off a little, slack off, now watch when I squeeze tighter. And again, I'm not raising it up off the hammer block. I'm just backing off a little bit. If I back off till it clicks, then the hammer comes up. See, I'm not doing that. I'm leaving it down, locked. I'm just backing off the pressure a little. I get movement. Now watch when I squeeze. Listen. Nothing. Rock solid. So there's something in this mechanism that, I mean, there's something to be said for that when you fire these revolvers, to squeeze the trigger nice and firm and hard. Because if you have like a lazy trigger, and like when you're pulling, it might not be locking up as tight as if you're. I'm not saying if you really squeeze way too hard, of course you're gonna jerk the gun, but point is, it just couldn't hurt to mean it when you pull the trigger with these Colts. Whereas with the Smith & Wesson, it's not really going to make that much of a difference. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was interesting. I noticed that myself upon squeezing the trigger tight like that. And that virtually eliminates all movement. There isn't a single, I'm telling you, it's not moving a millimeter. It's locked when you squeeze the trigger down like that. So if there's somebody that just technically can explain exactly why that happens, then go for it. But one of these days I'm going to find out. And that's that. Y'all stay tuned because I'm coming right up. What is it? What is today? Thursday? No, it's only Wednesday, isn't it? It's only Wednesday. I got to get in with a video before the weekend. I can't wait for the weekend. Problem with last weekend is work came up where I had to work straight through, and I really thought I was going to be around to do a video, so I apologize there. But this weekend isn't looking any less packed with stuff, so I might as well try to get a video in. I always say like tonight, and then I never do it, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll have the time. I'll post this up right now, and hopefully you guys will be around later if I decide to come on back and do another video on the rifle series. I think I got most of it together. Talk to you all soon. Later.